Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Inisa Kumala from Economics Education Study Program, State University of Jakarta. Today, I will presenting about my research that with the title The Influence of Digital Learning Media Usage on Digital Economic Literacy with Self-Efficacy as an Intervening Variable. With my supervisor one is Dr. Suparno SPD MPD, and my second supervisor is Aditya Pratama SPD MPD. For the background of my research is digital economic literacy is an essential skill in the Industrial Revolution 4.0 era, where many economics activities are increasingly digitized. The use of online learning media in school is expected to improve students' digital economic literacy, namely the ability to understand, analyze, and utilize technology in economic context. However, the effectiveness of using online learning media is not only dependent on technological availability but also influenced by students' psychological factors, one of which is self-efficacy, the individual's belief in their ability to achieve specific goals. And then problem formulation of this research. The first is to determine the effect of online learning media usage on digital economic literacy among students of SMAN 62 Jakarta. The second one is to determine the effect of online learning media usage on students' self-efficacy at SMAN 62 Jakarta. The third is to determine the effect of self-efficacy on digital economic literacy among students of SMRN 62 Jakarta. And the last one is to determine the mediating role of self-efficacy in the relationship between online learning, media usage, and digital economic literacy. And then for the research of objectivities, the first is to find out the impact of online learning media on digital economic literacy among SMN 62 Jakarta students. And the second one, to find out the impact of online learning media on student self-efficacy at SMN 62 Jakarta. And the third is to find out the influence of self-efficacy on digital economic literacy among SMN 62 Jakarta students. And the last one, to examine the role of self-efficacy as a mediator between online learning media usage and digital economic literacy. And then there are two theory benefits of this research. The first is theoretical benefit, and the second one is practical benefit. And this is the literature review of this research that's about online learning media and then self-efficacy, and last one in digital economic literacy. And for the grand theory of this research is social cognitive theory by Albert Bandura, that he said learning occurs through empirical interaction among individuals, environment, and behaviors. Online learning media serve as environmental stimuli that can affect individuals' belief in their capabilities or self-efficacy. Those with high self-efficacy are more capable of understanding and applying information effectively, including the digital economic literacy. This theory underpins the relationship between online learning media, self-efficacy, and digital economic literacy. And then for the supporting theory, as by Wijaya et al. In 2021, found that self-efficacy serves as mediator between the use of online learning media and the improvement of digital economics literacy. And then this is the previous research of my research right now. And then is the theoretical framework and research hypothesis of my research. And then the research object is for the research research place research is SMA in Negeri 62 Jakarta, and for this time is January until June 2025, and the population is student of SMA in 62 Jakarta, Kramajati district, and data collection is using questionnaires. For the research method, there are four research methods here. The first one is method that is quantitative research method, and the second one is data collection method that use online questionnaire by Google Form. And for the population is 216 students grades 10 SMA Negeri 60 Jakarta, and for the sample is 169 students. And for the research methods, there are four research methods here. The first one is data analysis techniques. I use descriptive statistical analysis and quantitative analysis by SEM and PALS. And then for the outer model analysis, there are convergent validity tests that for knowing whether an indicator is valid or not in reflecting a variable, and then discriminant validity test used to analyze the relationship between latent variables, and internal consistency reliability to assess the reliability of the instrument. And for inner model, there are variance inflection factor or VIF to test whether there is a correlation between independent variables in the model, and then R-square, a measure in of sample prediction for all endogenous variables, and F-square provides an estimate of the predictive power of each independent variable in the model, and then predictive relevance assesses the sample prediction of dependent constraint, and as predict evaluates the predictive power of models out of sample. And the hypothesis testing is used direct influence analysis and indirect influence analysis. The hypothesis is accepted when the t-statistic value is less up more than 1.6, 1.96, and p-values less than 0.05. The hypothesis is rejected when t-statistic less than 1.96 and p-values more than 0.05. And this is our model analysis result. Based on the result of the composite reliability and Crow-Bench alpha test, the values indicated satisfactory result. As we can see from the analysis result, data processing in this study was conducted using SmartPLS 4.0, software using the partial least squares structural equation modeling or PLS-SEM approach. The first stage in this analysis was running the PLS algorithm to obtain the PET coefficient factor loading values for each indicator, outer loading, and coefficient of determination or R-square. The algorithm results indicate that all indicators for each variable have other loading values above 0.70, indicating that all indicators in this model are convergently valid and suitable for use in construct measurement. Indicators for the digital learning media variable X have loading values between 0.830 and 0.873. B. Indicators for the self-efficacy variable or Y have loading values between 0.736 and 0.873. And the indicators for the digital economic literacy variable or Z have loading values between 0.711 and 0.877. Choose all indicators in this model meet the requirements for conversion validity loading more than 0.70, which means that these indicators are able to represent the variable construct well. And then for composite reliability and convergence alpha test, based on the result of the composite reliability and convergence alpha test, the values indicated satisfactory result. All latent variables were reliable as well, as all latent variables had composite reliability and convergence alpha values above equals 0.7. Therefore, it can be concluded that the questionnaire used as a research tool was reliable and consistent. And the average variance extracted, or AVA, value is greater than 1.5, indicating that all indicators meet the established criteria and have potential reliability for future testing. The following table shows that the square root of the average variance extracted for each construct is greater than the correlation between each construct in the model. And this is the inner model analysis result. There are F squared, Q squared, and R squared. For the F squared, the influence of digital learning media on digital economic literacy, the F squared value for this influence is 0.2270. Based on the criteria, this value is between 0.15 and 0.35, indicating that digital learning media has a medium influence on digital economic literacy. And the influence of digital learning media on self-efficacy is indicating that digital learning media has a strong influence on the formation of self-efficacy. And the influence of self-efficacy on digital economic literacy, it can be concluded that self-efficacy has a strong influence on digital economic literacy. And then for Q squared, the digital economic literacy variable has a Q-square value of 0.417. This value indicates that the structural model has high predictive relevances because it is above 0.35 in explaining the digital economic literacy variable. And the self-efficacy variable has a Q-square value of 0.279. This value indicates that the model has moderate predictive relevance because it is above 0.15 for the self-efficacy variable. And the R-square digital economic literacy variable is explained by other variables outside the research model, that this value is classified as strong or substantial, indicating that the research model has excellent explanatory power of the digital economic literacy variable. And for the self-efficacy variable, this is indicated that the digital learning media variable explains 43.5% of the variance in the self-efficacy variable. This value can be categorized as moderate. This means that this model adequately explains the factor influencing self-efficacy while the remaining 56.5% is influenced by other factors. And the last one is hypothesis test result. The following are the results of the hypothesis testing on the structural model. The first one is the influence of digital learning media on digital academic literacy. The result of the first hypothesis that indicated that the digital learning media has positive and significant effect on digital economic literacy. This is evidenced by the path coefficient or original sample of 0.399 indicating a positive effect. The t-statistic of 50868 is greater than the t-table 1.96 and the p-value of 0.000 is less than the 0.05 significance level. Thus, it can be concluded that the use of effective digital learning media is statistically proven to improve digital economic literacy, thus accepting the first hypothesis, H1. And second one, the result of the second hypothesis that tests demonstrate a positive and significant effect of digital learning media on self-efficacy. The path coefficient value obtained was 0.660, indicating a positive and strong relationship. The significance of this effect is reinforced by the t-statistic value of 12.0792, which far exceeds the t-table 1.96 and the p-value of 0.000, which is below the 0.05 threshold. Based on the result, the second hypothesis, or H2, is accepted, indicating that digital learning media is an important factor in building self-efficacy or student confidence. And the last one is the result of the third hypothesis test indicated that self-efficacy has a positive and significant effect on digital economic literacy. The path coefficient value of 0.497 indicates that an increase in self-efficacy will be followed by an increase in digital economic literacy. This effect is statistically significant, as seen from the statistic value of 6.935 greater than 1.96 and the p-value of 0.000 less than 0.05. Therefore, the third hypothesis H3 is accepted, which confirms that self-confidence is an important predictor of digital economic literacy. Maybe that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.